Hi everyone, it's Natasha. I'm in the process of packing up some swaps, so I thought I would give kind of quick tips for sending your swaps in. For those of us who moderate or host swaps, you know that it could be a challenge when some things are received and they're kind of iffy. I think it's wonderful when people include nifty gifties. I appreciate them immensely. They're absolutely not necessary, but I do appreciate them. There are a couple of hints to give. For example, I was just packing up a swap, and the recipient sent in an envelope that is just too small for the item. So now I'm going to grab another envelope that is from my received pile. And what I do is when I come in, I have an empty tote that I put everything in, and because I currently moderate 2 different swaps, I note on the envelope, and I've actually asked the senders to note on the outside of the envelopes which swap they're in, or if they're in both swaps. That helps me organize them better. So as an envelope comes in, I put it in the tote, and I note it on the site, on the website, and these are for the yourpaperpantry.ning.com site, that they have been received. When I go to open them, I have a spreadsheet that has each participant's name and 3 columns. One column has a count of how many items they've sent in. These are ATCs and inchy swaps that I am currently moderating. So I have a count for each of those if they're in both swaps, and if they're in multiple groups, I also note that in that column as well. The second column tells me whether there's if I think of it, I'll probably show that on my blog, a photograph of that, or a screen print image. I also have a column that shows the amount of postage, and if they've wanted, if they have requested for their envelope to be recycled, which I always encourage, because that means you only need to use 1 envelope instead of 2, but you just always have to keep in mind that just because you're sending something in that is relatively small doesn't mean you'll be returned the same size items, because some people use different types of packaging, and I'll show that as an example from this particular one. And as you can see, I'm keeping the recipient their identity secret, and the address you see is mine, so I'll show you another tip in a second. And then the last column, I have a comment section, which I then keep track of any extras. Like if somebody sends me a nifty gifty, I note that in there as well, because I'm trying very hard not to lose track of that. And I want to thank everyone personally, and I do apologize in advance if I miss anyone. And if you see one of my videos and you're a participant in a swap that I am moderating, please make sure you note that if I did not mention what you included as a nifty gifty. I apologize in advance. Sometimes it's a little tricky to keep track of that, but I am trying my best to be proactive and uber organized. So tip number 1, if you're sending a package in, expect that what you're going to be getting could be just a little larger. For example, this participant was in multiple groups, in multiple swaps, so based on the items being returned plus the packaging, it doesn't fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another received envelope right here, which is a little larger. As you can see, this one's been recycled a couple of times as well. I'm going to pull off the address on the front and relabel it for this recipient. So that's how that one is going to go. Then the second tip I have is going to require a little bit of noise. So this recipient requested for the envelope to be recycled, which is fabulous. But you know these postage metered mail stickers can be kind of tricky, especially if they're placed on top of paper exterior envelopes. This one's bubble wrapped on the inside, but if I go to rip it, it's going to rip off. And I don't want to cover it, I just want to be able to put the recipient's postage on there, which they included separately, which I love. Thank you so much. And if you include an extra stamp, that's also helpful. It's 45 cents for you, but it can mean an avoidance of a lot of hassle for the moderator. So I pull out my trusted heat gun and watch what happens. I'm going to try to do this upside down so you can see that. So you see I could kind of start that, but watch. It's going to get loud for a second. almost like a miracle. You see that? And as soon as it starts giving you resistance, or like it's going to rip, I hit it with a heat gun again. Please keep in mind I have almost asbestos fingers, so I would not keep your hands in the way. But as you could see, that peels off much nicer. One more time. Much, much cleaner than if you tried to rip it without that. See? There you go. This might be a little tacky, but once you put the postage on it, it'll be as good to go. So now I can toss that away. And this envelope is ready to be reused. I always note, see this was asked to be recycled, and that's wonderful. That helps a lot. So I always write, please do not bend on the front, and please do not bend on the back somewhere. Hopefully that helps. If you see that your labels are peeling up, that's another problem that can happen in transit. Sometimes labels, although they could be by very reliable companies, which I won't name, but you all know, they can tend to peel up just a little bit, particularly if you're using a plastic sheath envelope. So something like this, it could start to peel up. All you have to do is put a little piece of clear tape over it. I usually just keep dollar store packing tape for those purposes, and then just if an item is bulging, just seal the lip, even though there could be self-adhesive. See? And that's another thing. When I open up, I always try to note if there was cash in the envelope. I always try to note that right on the envelope, so if something gets pulled out. So hopefully that helps. It's sometimes a little tricky to keep track of everyone and everything, but if you're organized from the beginning of the swap, it does help immensely. So what I do is I keep a spreadsheet or a separate document for each month's swap. That way I know, especially if it's someone who participates in swaps every single month and they maybe are sending a little too much postage or not enough postage, I can let them know. Then you know that go ahead and include an extra stamp, or it's like 25 cents extra, or you're sending in too much money, and I'm going to, you know, let them know so they don't have to send quite as much. And thank you again for everyone who's included extra funds for my slush fund, which is where I go to grab some extra dollars or whatever is needed to send out swaps for those who may have been on the shorter side. And I do contact each person who may have been short, and if I have not contacted you, just check and see if there is extra postage that need to be included. When I take them to the post office, I get the metered strips added to them. So if you have any questions about swaps or swap etiquette, by all means. This was really more about the packaging and shipping rather than etiquette itself. That I could probably talk about for quite a bit longer. But as always, if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, please feel free to leave me a comment. Don't forget to stop by yourpaperpantry.ning.com if you want to join us. It's a lot of fun, and as you could see, I'm trying to be really organized. Thanks for watching, everyone.